I know. But yes, there's more. Hi entrepreneurs, I'm Vicky Brown, and you're in the right place if you want to engage your team, boost your business, and grow your leadership muscle. Now, in part 1, we covered the foundational elements of HR compliance, from employment laws and employee handbooks to classifications, hiring, payroll, and benefits. Today, we're diving into those other compliance areas that can often fly under the radar, but can still create serious problems if they get overlooked. Let's start with record-keeping requirements. The government expects you to maintain specific employee records, and these requirements vary depending on the size of your business and your industry. But at minimum, you need to keep personnel files with basic employment information, separate confidential medical files, I-9 forms, and payroll records. And pay close attention to how long you need to keep these records. For instance, I-9 forms have to be retained for 3 years after the date of hire or 1 year after termination, whichever is later. Payroll records generally need to be kept for at least 3 years, while employee benefit plans and seniority systems should be maintained for the full period that the plans are in effect, plus at least a year after. Poor record keeping might seem like a minor issue until you face an audit or investigation. Without proper documentation, you'll have no way to defend your actions or prove compliance. Next, let's talk about accommodations for employees with disabilities. The Americans with Disabilities Act applies to businesses with 15 or more employees, but lots of states have similar laws that apply to even smaller companies. You're required to provide reasonable accommodations to qualified individuals with disabilities unless it would cause undue hardship. These accommodations might include modified equipment, adjusted work schedules, or changes to job duties. But the key here is engaging in what's called the interactive process. That's a good faith dialogue with the employee about potential accommodations. And if you don't engage in the process properly, well, that's one of the quickest ways to end up with a discrimination claim. Another overlooked area is pregnancy accommodations. Pregnancy discrimination is prohibited under federal law, and again, a lot of states have additional protections that require reasonable accommodations for pregnant employees. Things like more frequent breaks, temporary transfers to less physically demanding roles, or modified work schedules. Religious accommodations also create compliance obligations. You need to reasonably accommodate an employee's religious beliefs or practices, again, unless it would cause undue hardship. Now, that might involve scheduling changes for religious observances or modifications to the dress codes for religious clothing. All right, let's move on to workplace posters. Federal, state, and sometimes local laws require you to display specific posters. They typically include information about minimum wage, workplace safety, anti-discrimination laws, and family and medical leave. The posting requirements change regularly, and they may be different based on your location and company size. The Department of Labor offers a first-step poster advisor tool that can help you figure out which federal posters you need, but you'll also need to check state requirements. For remote workers, you need to make sure that they have access to the notices too, typically through a company intranet or email. Background checks are another compliance minefield. The Fair Credit Reporting Act sets requirements for employers who conduct background checks through third-party agencies. You have to get written consent from the candidate and provide specific pre-adverse action notices if you're considering a negative decision based on the report. And then you have to follow up with additional notices if in fact you do take adverse action. Now, a lot of states and some cities have enacted ban the box laws, and they restrict when you can ask about criminal history in the hiring process. Some locations have also limited or prohibited the use of credit checks in employment decisions. Social media policies create another compliance challenge. While you can establish reasonable guidelines for employee social media use, the National Labor Relations Board has consistently held that overly broad social media policies violate employee rights, their rights to engage in protected, concerted activity. Your policy can't prohibit employees from discussing working conditions or engaging in any other protected activity online. And data privacy compliance is also becoming increasingly important. If you collect or store personal information about employees or customers, you need to implement reasonable security measures and be aware of the relevant privacy laws. Now, for businesses operating in California, the California Consumer Privacy Act has significant implications, and there are similar laws in other states and countries. These laws create obligations on you regarding how you collect, use, and protect personal information. Wage and hour compliance goes far beyond just paying minimum wage and overtime. You also need to comply with meal and rest break requirements, and they vary significantly by state. California, for example, requires a 30-minute meal break for employees who work more than 5 hours, and additional breaks for longer shifts. Pay transparency laws are relatively new, but they are spreading quickly. Now, these laws may require you to include salary ranges in job postings, prohibit asking about salary history, and protect employees' rights to discuss their compensation with their coworkers. An independent contractor classification is always a high-risk area, especially with the growth of the gig economy. The Department of Labor, the IRS, and state agencies, they all use different tests to determine proper classification, and misclassification can result in significant penalties. So if you're a business using independent contractors, make sure you have proper written agreements, that you don't exercise too much control over how the work is performed, and make sure the worker isn't economically dependent on your business. Now, if your business sponsors any type of retirement plan, even a simple 401k, you have fiduciary responsibilities. This includes selecting and monitoring investment options, ensuring reasonable fees, and providing required disclosures to all the participants. And to add fuel to the fire, small businesses are increasingly targets for cyber attacks, and that creates operational and compliance concerns. Several states now require businesses to implement reasonable security measures to protect sensitive information and to notify affected individuals if a data breach does happen. Immigration compliance. It extends beyond just I-9 verification. For instance, if you sponsor employees for work visas, you have to keep specific records and comply with Department of Labor and USCIS requirements, because even innocent mistakes in this area can result in significant penalties. And the compliance landscape becomes even more complex for businesses operating in multiple states or countries. Each location may have different requirements for minimum wage, paid leave, termination processes, and all sorts of other employment practices. And as you scale your business, you have to be aware that many employment laws have different requirements based on your employee count. So this means your compliance obligations, they're going to evolve as your business grows. What was optional at 10 employees may become mandatory at 15 or 50. Remember, HR compliance isn't just about avoiding legal problems, though that's certainly important. It's about creating a foundation for treating employees fairly and consistently, and that ultimately supports your business goals. The best approach is to build compliance into your processes from the very beginning, rather than trying to retrofit it later. Start with the basics and expand your compliance program as your business grows. And if you're still feeling a bit lost, remember to check out the HR Simple Start membership. We've got Simple Start Premier with its bite-sized learning modules and monthly expert sessions, or our all-inclusive IDEO On Call membership, and that connects you directly with a dedicated HR professional. We have options designed to fit seamlessly into your business strategy and your budget, So just use the link below and you can explore how we can help. And remember, your inspired leadership is the secret sauce to having a high-performance team and a wildly successful business you'll love. I'll see you next time on Leader's Journey.